Hi everybody, it's me, Memo, your friendly neighborhood Alexa evangelist. Happy to be here. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be talking about all the new features that have come for the Alexa Skills Kit in the last month, basically. So I'm going to be featuring a few of the new things that we've launched, and I'm going to be talking in depth about others. We've talked a lot about the new GUI, the new graphical user interface for creating in-skill purchasing items, and Amit and I actually did a whole webinar on that yesterday. So I'm not going to cover that too much, but we're going to talk a little bit about hosted skills. We're going to talk about auto delegate. We're going to talk about utterance profiler, and we're going to talk about the new information that's available in Developer Portal and the Skill Management API for certification and the different estimates for when your skill will be certified and new functionality that's there. So I think we should start with the new information available in the Developer Portal. So I've got my Dev Portal queued up over here, and I've got myself on this screen. I just want chat, so give me 1 second. Bear with me, chat. I just want to be able to look at what you adorable people are saying without having to look at my ugly, ugly face. Okay, so you should be able to see my screen now, and what you'll see here is a list of skills that I'm working on or whatnot. In this case, the skill that I want to draw attention to is this very dumb skill that I made one time on stream that is called silly number facts. And the only reason I'm using that skill is because it's one of the skills that I have that's live. And what I did is the first thing you'll notice is I have that skill twice. And if you've ever published a skill, you'll seen something like this before, where one of your versions is live and one of your versions is in development. So I'm going to click on my silly number facts skill that is live, and I want to show you a couple of things. So other than the fact that I have basically no users for this skill because it doesn't really do much, I clicked on the certification tab over here at the top, and maybe I can zoom in a little bit just to make it extra readable. What you'll notice is this box up here is new and has a bunch of new information there. I don't know why chat isn't loading for me on that screen. So here's you'll see that there's way more detail here. Before it was basically just like you submitted it, that's it. Now you can see when you last submitted it. Yesterday I thought I was very smart, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna submit it a day before, so we'll see where it's in the process. But it turns out they published it real quick, so it's now live. But we can still see the history, the certification updates. So you'll see that it was in review yesterday, February 5th. Apologies to everyone that does their date in a more logical way than month, day, year, like we do in the US. But that's February 5th at 2:32 p.m. And I even got an estimate at that point, which was your results should be available on the 8th by 2:32 p.m. So that's the window or the estimate that they gave me, and they actually exceeded expectations because at 2 a.m. on February 6th, I got this new message that was congratulations, et cetera, et cetera. So that's super cool. It's really helpful. Gives you a little bit more visibility into where your skill is in the progressing through certification and review and all these things. So it kind of adds on some of the more automated features that we created for you. And the other one that is really helpful is this little drop down over here, country availability details. And if you click on it, you'll be able to see a list of the countries where your skill is available in. So if you have any if you've been playing around with what countries your skill should be available in and whatnot, you can use this screen to verify it. So that's really cool, really good. I think it's pretty interesting. Let's just, for the sake of completeness, push another version of my skill to kind of do to see the whole flow, what it looks like when you develop a new version. So in that case, I'll go into the in development version, and I wanted to actually show you one other thing. It's not necessarily part of this core concepts, but I did want to show you this. If you go into the test tab, you can see that the skill testing is in development in, and before it was just on or off. Now you can actually choose here what version of your skill you want to test, and there's only two versions really, or two stages for your skill, and one is in development and the other one is live. But here you can choose, I want to test my live version of the skill, and all that it's saying there is that the session will be reset. If you were like in the middle of a conversation with Alexa, it'll be reset when you change what stage you're testing against, and then you can also change it to in development. I'm not going to actually do any tests. All I'm going to do is going to add one utterance to one of my intents, rebuild a model, and then push a new version. So I'm going to add one here. Let me steal one from the other intent, because basically all I'm doing is I'm adding a slot. Tell us something about number value. Whoop, please. So I'm just adding one utterance, and I'm gonna actually adding the utterance now. Save the model, build the model, and I'm gonna wait for it to finish building, and then I'm going to go through the certification or the pushing through the certification process or publication, and just to kind of show you how it all looks like. And as I mentioned at the top, what's also really, really cool about this is that the information is available through the dev portal, which is developer.amazon.com, for your skills, which is this graphical interface, web-based graphical interface. But if you're a tool builder, or if you like hacking with APIs, we also have an API which is called the Skill Management API. And if you've ever used our command line interface, you're actually interacting with a tool that leverages the Skill Management API. I'm going to show you how you can also access that data from the Skill Management API in 1 second, and what I'm going to be using is Postman to do that. I'm doing it in a very, very hacky way. There's more professional ways of doing this, but I'm just going to do it in the really simple way. So now that my update to my skill is done, what I can do is 1 second. I'm just making chat a little bit bigger on my other screen so I can read it. So now I've got this new version. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run these validations. My session expired. Fantastic. So I don't know why the portal logged me out, but I'm going to log myself back in. So I'm going to just make sure that my changes actually got saved. Yep, so the changes are there. It looks like the model built, and then it logged me out. I'm not entirely sure why that happened, but it's fine. So certification, and now I'm going to run these validation tests, and these are going to make sure that all the metadata and whatnot for this skill is properly created and doesn't have any issues. And then I'm going to run the functional tests to make sure that it runs a battery of automated tests to make sure that things are working. And until you do those two, you can't actually hit submission. And so you'll notice that the validations run a little bit quicker than the functional test, and then the functional test takes a little bit longer. So let me see a couple of questions. Voice recognition, biometrics, face recognition for security, or those that already exist. Newbie here. So R2D2Q3. Voice recognition and having like a voice ID is something that we as a company are looking into, and we've experimented some with. So you can train your Alexa devices to identify you for certain first-party experiences, like listening to music and that kind of thing. But that's not available for developers yet. Biometrics, face recognition, most of the devices don't have a camera. Most of the cameras are turned off by default, just due to we want to be very careful with the privacy of our users. So unless the user is turning the camera on to make a call or whatnot, the cameras are off. So we don't really use those for our devices. Now, there's another question from @George17. How does changing the invocation name for a live version work? Do they need to be removed first and republished? Basically, you cannot change the invocation name of a live skill. And just think about it this way. I make a skill that you, George, love, and the skill is called Silly Number Facts. And then one day, without notifying you, I just change the name of that skill that you love to Silly Numbers Trivia. Now when you try to use the skill that you love, it's not going to be there anymore. You won't be able to trigger it. So that's why we don't allow you to just swap out invocation names for skills that have been published. In development, you can do whatever you want, but once they're published, you can't change the invocation name. You could create a new skill with a new invocation name and eventually remove the old one and let users know through the old one that there's a new one now, but it's not something that we recommend off the bat. Then, obviously, invocation names are also unique or per locale, per language model. So if you're launching in a new country and you want to have a different invocation name for that country, that's fine. Those can coexist. That's no problem. So the functional tests are done now, and now I can go to submission. And this version has not been submitted yet for review, so I'm gonna click submit for review, and it's gonna kick off the process. And now you'll notice that I have this skill that's live, and now it's in review, and I can withdraw it from review if I figure out that there's, oh man, I made an issue, there's a bug, I can just pull that back. But now if I go into the certification tab, you'll notice that it said it was certified at 2 a.m., but now, I guess it's going to take a couple more minutes to update this. So we're just going to have to wait for this to update because it takes a couple minutes for it to actually ingest it into the review. These are my old notes. So we'll come back to that in a second. So Jeff PSF, any update on the turnaround time for, it's actually called Zero Touch Publishing, in which you only change the value of slots. As far as I know, it exists. It's something that should work, but we have found some inconsistencies in the field. Something I raised with the team, where all you do is change slot values. It should be really quick to get your skill published. As you can see, with simple changes to a skill, it should be very quick to get published, but in no case is it immediate. Even if it's zero-touch publishing, it takes some time for all of that to get ingested into the systems and all that thing. So it should take hours rather than days. But that's, like I said, there's been some inconsistencies, and it's something that I'm looking into. So Block Lab, you can submit without running these tests, but it's not recommended at all. These tests are going to get run on your skill regardless. So if it fails one of those tests, it's going to get rejected. So you probably want to get that rejection for something silly, like you forgot to add your example phrases, or you don't have icons. You want to know about that as soon as you can, rather than wait for someone to look at that and then send the information to you. You do get information for functional tests that fail Oxygen Box. If one of the functional automated tests fails, it'll tell you like, oh, this is broken, or that's broken, or we tried this and it didn't work. That's fine. Block Lab, should skill IDs be handled privately? Is it a problem to make them public, for example, on GitHub? It's not a huge problem to make your skill ID public, but just make sure that you're not making your ARN and your skill ID public, because then if you have some security on your Lambda ARN that is dependent on your skill ID and you've published both, someone could maliciously kind of generate traffic to your ARN and like DDoS you or something like that. That's the only real scenario where I can see someone making malicious use of a skill ID. Not something that would affect you. It's not, in a sense, it's not something that's too private. So why do you have to upload two separate icons? The reason is you might want to change your branding a little bit so it looks good on the smaller size rather than us rescaling it and losing resolution and all that. So we want to give you the ability to just control that as much as you can. If you're using our icon maker, and let me just show you that real quick. Alexa, icon builder. So we have this icon builder that we made just for this case. And if you make an icon here, let's make one. Well, it's freezing in Seattle, like legit freezing. If you use Celsius like I do, it's been basically below 0 all of 3 days, so very cold for our standards. So I made a little icon there with a snowflake because it's really cold, and then let's add a little bit of shadow here, and then I can just click download. And if you make them this way, you're gonna get a zip file that will have both sizes of the icon. So it's really easy. Okay, so let's see if the info and the dev portal has been updated. Okay, so it's still processing. Let's just wait, we'll come back to it. Let me show you how to do this from the skill management API side of the house. So what I have here is Postman, and Postman is a tool built by a company that is fantastic. I love Postman, it's great. It really helps with testing APIs specifically, so I love it. I use it for many things. In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use it to test the list certification of this specific skill, of that specific skill. So I'll show you, this is a previous run that I did a little bit earlier, and what it's telling me is that the actual completion stamp was at 2 a.m. On February 6th, and the last update was at 2 a.m. And that the status was succeeded. So I'm getting the same data that I was seeing earlier this way, and I'm going to send another request in, and let's see what we get back right now. Yeah, so since it's still ingesting that skill, there's no certifications found at this time. But the main point, the interesting point here is how am I doing this? And what I'm doing is I'm using the API.Amazon Alexa endpoint, and then /v1/skills, and then using the skill ID for that specific skill and saying, give me the certifications for that skill. There's a lot of endpoints against that API that you can use with a simple get. I have another example here, which is using the stages to get a manifest for a specific skill. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to test that one again. And what I get back here is a whole manifest for the skill. So the locales, the name, the icons, all the information for my skill, I can get it there. All the metadata for my skill, and I'm getting it through the skill management API. And really, the only trick to get this working, is I'll show you that in a second. So first, I want to share a link to the skill management API. And this is a landing page, but the real good stuff is here. So this is all the documentation for the skill management API. I'm going to throw a link to the docs on chat. SMAPI. And you can check out all the different things that you can do there, but you can do skill certification, skill enablement, invocation. You can even do there's a new verb for the API, which is, Vendor package enablement. I think it's under management. Create a skill request list. Yeah, so you now have a verb to either delete a skill, but there's one for unpublish. And what this will do is that it'll leave the skill live, but and this is brand new. This came out at the same time as the certification information. You can unpublish a skill, and what that means is for your current customers, it'll still be there, but no one new can start enabling that skill. So if you're kind of sunsetting a skill, but you want to give a good experience to existing customers, you can unpublish it, and they can continue to use it, and then you can have a new one. You can also do that from the developer portal, so we can take a look at that in a second. But let me see if this is updated. Okay, so in the way you get Postman to work to do this is you'll find the URL for the actual, let's say you wanted to get a request here, to make a request to a skill or just list all your skills. This basically is telling you what the call to the API is, which is v1 skills, your vendor ID, and the number of results that you want. And then ahead of that, you are going to do HTTPS ://api.amazon. I'm blanking out. AmazonAlexa.com. And then you can just make a call to that. Now you need to make a secure call to that because it's an HTTPS endpoint. The way to do that in Postman is to include an authorization token or an authorization token as part of the header. This is the responses. So the way you do it in Postman is authorization, and then here you're going to post your bearer token that's going to verify who you are. Now, this can trip you up a little bit. The real hacky memo way of doing this is let me clear this up so I can take it from the top. Basically, you can make a call to using the CLI, the command line interface, for Alexa Skills Kit. And here I'm just using ASK API list-skills. It's going to list all my skills, and basically all I want is for it under the hood to make a call and see an output so I know it's working. So I get a new token, and then I'm going to look at my token by using this cat command here. And what it does is it's going to show me the tokens for the multiple accounts that I have set up on this box. And I have one called Alexa Twitch Devs, and then I have my default profile. So I know it's the default one that I want. So then I can grab this whole token. And the token is only valid for an hour, so I'm not too concerned if anyone's looking at that one. As you can see, I haven't really made CLI calls with my other account in a really long time because it expired sometime in June of 2018. So this token will expire in about an hour, and I can use it to make calls with it. Obviously, you could build a little bit more of this into Postman itself and make a call to the API to get a token and get a refresh token and just kind of have that happen under the hood. I'm a little too lazy to do that, but you can do it that way and then just drop the token in here. Whoops, copied the wrong thing. Now be mindful that there's actually two tokens here. It's your access token and then a refresh token. Don't copy both. You just want the access token. I did that this morning before I had coffee, and it was all broken. Why is it copying the wrong things? All right, terminal, you're being smarter than you should be. Here we go. So now we're going to save that. We're going to send the request, and this is actually the response for what we got there. And this one's the skill information, but the list certification one is here. Let's see if there's new data there. Nope, not yet. Okay, so that's one feature I wanted to look at. Like I said, there's the unpublished as well that you can use, and that's new for Skill Management API in the developer portal. Now, I'm going to do a little bit of a demo that'll include the other two main features, or I guess three main features that I wanted to use, and it's hosted skills, auto delegate, and utterance profiler. So I'm pretty excited about that. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the developer portal and look at my skills. And I'm going to make a new skill. I'm going to create a brand new skill. And I'm going to start with the first feature that I want to show you is Alexa hosted skills. So I'm going to call this one release January releases demo. And what I'm going to do is say, I'm going to keep it in English US. I'm going to make a custom skill. I guess I got a shout out. We have a new type of skill that's called baby activity that we announced yesterday, but we're not going to go into that right now. And then here, before there was only one type of hosting solution for your skills. Now there's two. There's Alexa hosted, which is in beta, but it's in open beta now as of maybe 2-3 weeks ago. So got custom selected, and I got Alexa hosted selected, and I'm going to hit create skill. So this is going to build a new skill, and the really cool thing about this is that it's going to host the code for me inside of the developer portal. So I don't have to jump over to AWS and have an AWS account. So if I kind of want to get started real quick, or if I don't want to mess around with my credit card and create a new AWS account or whatnot for the time being, this will get me started with that, and I'll have a Lambda function that I can use, and some services that I can leverage with that. So it's really exciting and really cool to see it. It gets you started real quick. It's a feature that I'm really happy that we have now. It obviously takes a little bit longer on the front end to build this skill for you because it's putting all the code and all that stuff in there. And by default, at least today in the beta, what it does is it creates a hello world skill for you with the code and everything in there all ready to go. So without having to do anything else, let me just show you that real quick. I'm going to jump over to the test tab. And on the test tab, I'm going to turn on testing for the development because this one doesn't have one that's live. And I think it'll take January releases demo as the invocation name. That's what it should do. Which is not the best invocation name in the world, but it's a demo. Right, okay, so it says, welcome. You can say hello or help. Which would you like? And I say hello, and it should just say hello world. And that's it, right? It's just a hello world that it built for us. It's already, it did all the work for us right now. Doesn't really do much. We're going to start taking this apart pretty quickly in a second. But I'm just going to jump over to the build tab, show you what's in here. So we got the invocation name, which is January releases demo. We got a hello world intent. Very basic. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to use a sample that we have that is in our GitHub repo, and that was our original sample for dialogue delegation. And using that sample, I'm going to show you this new feature called auto delegate, which is really cool. So I'm going to go to our GitHub repo, github.com/Alexa, and I'll post a link to the exact repo that I'm going to use because it's a little under a few layers of organization. So I'm going to the cookbook, then I'm going to the feature demos, and then I'm going to dialogue delegate. So, and as you can see, this is an 8-month-old sample. We haven't really touched it in a little bit because it's pretty stable and it's good and it's known good, and there haven't been any changes. I'm just posting that link in chat. And I see there's a bit of activity in chat, so I'll come back and check in with you guys in a second, guys and gals. I'm going to go to Lambda and custom and then index.js. And I'm just going to steal all the code that's here. And the easiest way to do that is to click on raw and just then Control or Command A. Going to go back to this portal, and what you'll see now is there's a code tab up here that didn't used to exist. If I click on that code tab, all the code for my Lambda function is already in here, right? This is I have a little code editor with context highlighting. I can see multiple files, etc., etc. So I got my index.js file. I'm going to replace this here, and then going to hit save and deploy. So now if I try to use the skill, it's going to be broken because it doesn't have the same type of handlers. The response are going to be kind of mangled, so I'm not really going to bother with that too much. But the one thing I am going to do is kind of go through the structure of the code super quickly. And what we have is a bunch or several intent handlers. We have a launch request handler. We have an in progress plan my trip handler. We have a complete plan my trip handler, and then the usual suspects of help, cancel and stop, session ended, and like an error handler. So basically, the ones that we would want to look at here is the in progress handler, in progress plan my trip handler, and the completed plan my trip handler. And what we were doing is we were saying, like, if we get an intent request, and the intent request is plan my trip intent, and it's not completed, if it's not done, then just send back a delegate directive, which is just keep Alexa working on that dialogue until I have all the required slots. And once the required slots are completed, then our actual logic would happen. The really nice thing about auto delegate is we can just get rid of this code now, and we don't have to worry about it anymore. So I'm going to get rid of that code right there, and I'm also going to remove the reference down here because it doesn't exist anymore. So now I'm going to save that, and I'm going to deploy it. And in order for this to work, we're also going to need the interaction model for that specific sample. So I'm going to go over to the GitHub repo again, and instead of going to the Lambda portion, I'm going to go into the model side of the house, and I'm going to grab a model for English US. I'm just going to do that real quick. And come over here. And now on the build tab, I changed over here in the nav bar to build. I'm going to click JSON editor, because what I'm going to edit now is an interaction model, and I'm just taking it from over the other file, and I'm going to replace it. And so this will add the new intent, but I do have to be mindful that the invocation name is also part of this. So January releases demo. That's what I called it, right? January releases demo. Yes. So I'm going to click save the model, build the model, and while the model is building, before we can test, I'll just keep a quick look on chat. Via this Alexa settings API, is it possible to get time zone of the user's device without content token? Nope. So we always and this is from dgreenfl. You need to request permission specifically and explicitly for the user from the user to get any of their private information. That's just how we do it. They have to agree to that. Is voice over IP calling through Alexa available to developers? Not today, Logos Health. Customers can make calls between their contacts and whatnot, but not you can't leverage that as a developer. Where did I get the auth token from? I think I talked about that a little bit later, Block Lab. No, the token is limited to the account. That's there's an OAuth link, OAuth handoff happening under the hood for the CLI, and that token is specific to my account for an hour. Is there an API to directly let an echo device speak a defined text without user interaction? There's none of that, Siobhan 1. We always, all interactions are always triggered by the user. You can send notifications or reminders with a new API, but it's only a reminder. You can't just have a device start speaking by itself. There is an NPM package that lets you access SMAPI. It was written by a third party, no Amazon, no Alexa SMAPI. Yeah, that might be a cool project. I unfortunately haven't really looked at it. Siobhan 1, so Alexa will directly speak the text, or will it? Yeah, so reminders doesn't let you, just to be super clear, reminders doesn't let you just have Alexa start speaking. There's no, that functionality does not exist. You can send a reminder, but reminders are not just a verbal cue from Alexa. Let me see. Are hosted skills using my AWS account, which means I have to pay if all my skills in some exceed 1 million Lambda requests? No, this is, the hosted skills are actually built on an Alexa-owned account. It's not on your AWS account. We're hosting it for you. We're paying for all of that. It's all kind of you get that for free in a sense. So that's fine. You don't have to worry about that. It wouldn't actually include that. The URL for the tool memo is using is postman.com. Yes, sorry about that. I'll post a link to Postman because their tool is great and fantastic. Postman.com. You can use curl. You can use many things. One of my favorite features of Postman, and this is a non-paid advertisement now about Postman. Oh, and as I was talking, I hit send on the list certification thing, and now we actually have information here for the new so it's in progress. The submission was today at 6 p.m. I don't know what time zone this is set to, and then this estimated completion timestamp is for the 11th at 6 p.m. So super cool. Really excited to get to see that working. But what I was going to say is my favorite thing about Postman is that you have this little code tab over here on the right, and you can click code and then say, oh, I want this request made in Python, right? And then you can just copy that and plonk it into your Python code, and it would work. So that's really cool. So I use it to debug tests sometimes, and then I'll grab it and use this to like make a call from using like Node.js, right? So that makes me very happy, and it's a cool feature. Well done, Postman. Will it just let me with a sound? Whoa! Will it just tell me with a sound that I have a new notification, and then I have to tell that she tells me a notification? Yes, that's basically how Reminders API works, and that's it does a little bit more than that, but you can't just hijack it and have it say a bunch of text. What are the limitations of hosted skills? So hosted skills, Postman. Why isn't that working? Postman. Oh, it's getpostman.com. Let me throw that on there. Bam. Well, that didn't work. Getpostman.com. That's really cool. It's this little astronaut guy. It syncs things in the cloud. It's super handy. So hosted skills. So I actually removed my face from the screen because I wanted to show you that we had a couple of warnings here, but then build successful. And the warnings are, I have an activity slot that's not actually referenced anywhere, and that's why I'm getting that warning, but it would still build, like you can see up here, so that's fine. And it's also telling me that it added a navigate home intent to my model because it was missing it, and it's now required. So I did a couple things, or it did one thing for me there and called out another one, but it still built my skill. And then if you go to the code tab for your hosted skills and @George17 was asking about the limitations of hosted skills. Hosted skills actually only have access to a few AWS services. It's not a full account that you can just run amok in. You can use this editor, which is Cloud9 for Lambda, and you can use CloudWatch logs over here. You can use S3 media storage, and we actually have an integration for the SDK that lets you use S3 as a database or a data store. So those are basically the three services that you can use. One is Cloud9 for Lambda, creation of the code, so your code editor. Then you have S3 for media storage or persistence, and CloudWatch for logging. And that's it. That's all that Alexa Hosted Skills does for now, and that'll maybe in the future that'll increase, but it's definitely a starter account that is meant to get you started quickly, but it's not a full-fledged AWS account that is meant to replace the one that you already have. Someone else asked something and I missed. So you can create Alexa skills without AWS account or hosting them on your own for free, but you can't, for example, use sounds or images. You can use sounds or images. You can store them in S3 Block Lab. That's perfectly. You can do that today. That's perfect, great use case for it. It doesn't really matter. It is included here. So you have like a 5 GB, I think, for your version or your piece of the account. You have a 5 GB limit on S3, which is fairly substantial. I have found that Alexa hosting doesn't have all the features yet. I'm still using Lambda till it has 100% functionality. Kenyon SKUT, you probably will be waiting forever. We won't. It's very unlikely that we will have all the functionality of AWS on hosted skills. It's meant to get you started, to have multiple features that you can use, but it's not meant to replace AWS. It's built on top of AWS. We love AWS, and if you need a full, like every complement of features, and you want to do machine learning, all these different things, you're gonna have to go to AWS. This is meant to be like to get you started quickly, to build your first skills, maybe get you on your path to success with Alexa skills, but if you wanted to do more, you would have to graduate to a full AWS account. Will hosted skills become available in Java? I hope so. I'm not privy to that team's roadmap or when things will happen. We've made requests for more languages and such, and hopefully they're looking at it. Do you know when proactive events will become available in the Java SDK? Can you import your own JS package and Alexa hosted skills? So I do not know dates for when new features will be available in specific languages or specific SDKs, but we do strive to maintain parity across all the SDKs, so we should have that sorted pretty soon. Can you import your own NPM module using the current hosted skills? Yes, you can. So if you go to the packages.json, you can go in here and say, you know what, I don't want to use ASK core, I want to use ASK dash, I don't want to use, I don't want to use core, I want to use a full SDK. You can add it there. Just do that, and then let's see, probably whatever I'm running on the terminal, ASK, well not, ASK dash SDK, will that work? That won't work. That would get me the CLI version, but not the ASK SDK version. So ASK-SDK npm. I'm making this, not AWS, ASK. And then the latest version is 2.3. So I could just grab that and say, I want 2.3 version or higher. And then when I hit save, that's actually it's always gonna go, missing a comma here, save, and then deploy, and that's where it's actually gonna build my stuff from. I kind of got sidetracked, so I'm gonna kind of keep talking about auto-delegate and utterance profiler real quick. So now that, this is now deploying with my new dependency, but it's fine. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm just going to try and test this skill as is and see what happens. And what will happen is that it doesn't know how to handle dialogues, so it's going to break. So let's just do this. Open January releases demo. And I get the welcome message. Let's plan a trip. Where would you like to go? I would like to go to New York. And I hope I've got my computer muted here. Let me triple check. Yeah. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't blowing you up with really loud Alexa simulator. So now I would like to go to New York. And then what I get is, this sounds like a cool trip. You will go from undefined to New York on undefined, because it's not doing that dialogue to fill the other required slots. So the behavior is broken. typically the code that I stripped out of the sample would handle that. But because we live in the future now, I can go to the Build tab up here, Build tab, and then if you scroll to the bottom, you'll see that there is an Interfaces tab, and here you can turn multiple interfaces on, but the one that we want is called Auto Delegation. And I'm going to just turn that one on, and then rebuild my model. And it's not always going to give me that warning for activity because I'm not really referencing it anywhere. But we can do a test for that in a second, or we can actually do that in a second, and we'll take it from there. But let's just wait for it to build. Well, that finishes. Actually, that was a bad move on my part, because sometimes that will trigger a weird bug. So I'm going to wait on this screen until I see a build successful thing. Let me see. Do you know when proactive events will become available? We already talked about that. Can you still see a list of cards in the Alexa app somewhere? Didn't find the feature any longer. I think you can, alexa.amazon.com. I can't show the actual app here, but this is my actual account that you're looking at, and I was asking for the time in Hawaii because I've got family there and I wanted to call them, but it was too early to call them. We had, it's very cold, so I needed to know if I needed a hat and gloves this morning, so I did that earlier today before I left the house. And then I was playing music. So these are all my cards. I know the app, the UI is a little bit different now, but you can still get to these. All right, and if you're using a device with a screen like an Echo Show or Spot, like the ones I got here behind me, you would also see the cards or ideally the APL screens that you're creating. So the build's now successful. Let's go to test. And all I did from our previous test was I turn on that switch. And now I'm going to say open January releases demo. Let's plan a trip. Same thing. I would like to go to New York. And now, instead of just saying like undefined, it's actually asking me a question. Where are you starting your trip? And I can just say Seattle. And when will you start, would like to start the trip? And I'll just say Tuesday. Okay, I like this trip. You'll go from Seattle to New York on the 12th of February 2019. So it's all working. It's the dialogues are now working again without having to write the code for them to actually handle them. And the way that's working and the way those are actually handled is because in our interaction model over here, I have plan my trip intent that has all the different slots that I can fill. And if you look at each of these slots, so Amazon, the types are defined there. And if you look at the slots, I made those slots required, or we made those slots required. So the which city are you going to is a question that I have already defined through the developer portal as a prompt to fill this two city slot. And where are you going? Which city are you going? And then we also have the utterances that the user can say to fill that slot. So because I'm setting it as a required slot here, it's triggering those dialogues. So if I go over to activity and I say this slot is required, I can add prompts. What would you like to do when you get there? And the user can say, I love, and then we have an activity slot. Let's just say, I would love to activity. And let's build a model And then let's test that out real quick. Whoop. To activity in the sample utterances. I love. Oh, there's. Thought that looked weird. I would love to. Activity. So there was no space, but like my editor or like my UI was doing weird things, so it looked like there was a space, but there was no space. So now it's building a model. Let me answer a few more questions, not ask more questions. Which node libraries are included in the code tab, and is that part of the limitations? So what libraries are included there are part of like whatever's defined in your package.json. You can add your own. You can use some cool ones that I've used before are like moment or I don't know, request. There's a bunch. So the ones that are included are defined in the package.json, and you can add more if you do that. What region will the Lambda be created by default, and is it possible to have Lambda in multiple regions? That's one of the limitations of hosted skills. These are all created, and I believe they're all in North Virginia, but you cannot specify where you want more of these. You kind of just get that one, and that's it. Are there any drawbacks to using hosted skill model in the dev console versus having separate AWS Lambda function? There's no drawbacks. There's limitations for like the Alexa hosted skills has less functionality than just a pure AWS account. There's no drawbacks in the sense that you can do, if you can work within those limitations, you're free to do whatever you want. So now, let's just test this quick. And I'm going to say open January releases demo. And where would you like to go? Let's change it up. Portland. Where are you starting your trip? Seattle. When will you start this trip? Tomorrow. What? And this is the new question that I added. And the only reason that it's asking it is because I made that slot now required. No code, didn't touch any of the code. So this is really, really powerful stuff. What would you like to do when you get there? And I would say bike. This sounds like a cool trip. You'll go from Seattle to Portland on blah, blah, blah to go bike. And then the code was already built in a way that it would include the response. The response already in there, but on the front end, on the UI end, I built everything using the graphical UI, just entered prompts and all that, made sure the dialogues made sense, and then the auto delegate feature handled all of that. So I'm really, really happy to see that. Very excited to see what you guys and gals will build with it. And I've been logged out again. Fantastic news, everybody. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this on my intent, and I'm going to show you the last feature that I really want to highlight today, which is the utterance profiler. And if you look up here, you'll see this brand new button, and this one's a really cool one too. So I'm going to type an utterance here, and I'm going to say, I want to go to Seattle. So you'll see that I still have a simulator-like function here, but down here, it's telling me what intent it selected. So plan my trip intent, it selected it, and it also is showing me what slots are filled. So this to city is Seattle now, and the next dialogue act is elicit slot. So it's telling me what's happening next, but it's also showing me what other intents were considered. And all of these are plan my trip, but like to city, go Seattle, nothing filled, to city Seattle, and from city go, and from city Seattle. I considered this, but the one that I actually selected, the one that it was most confident in, was this one. So where are you starting your trip? I can say on Saturday and see what happens. So answering the wrong question, let's see what happens there. So what it'll say is it planned it, and then it said that the from city is Saturday. So that's not the right behavior, and we can use this utterance profiler to start fixing that. So we can then just say, okay, Saturday, and what would you like to go when you get there, and I don't know, kayak. And then you'll see here that it filled all my slots with the data that I provided. Obviously, the from city is where we kind of tripped it up, but we were answering the wrong question. So we should be able to look at more data and how we can fix that, maybe adding more contextual information, etc. But this is super, super cool. It's a great way to find like maybe blind spots in your voice model. So what will this exact utterance actually match to? So if I say, I want to go kayaking in Portland tomorrow, that's like a multi-solution thing. We can say, okay, I didn't fill the slot, the activity slot, so it looks to me that like there's no kayaking in our activities, but it did do Portland and the city, so that's like an immediate enhancement for me. So I can go to activity, and then, or actually list of activities, and then here bicycling, biking, biking, camping, hiking, surf, swimming. Yeah, so there's no kayak. I just made that one up. So kayak. Now I'm self-conscious. How do you spell kayaking? Does that look right? Yep, it looks okay. Kayaking. So I'm gonna add that one as well to my list of activities, and this is just a custom slot. I'm gonna build a model. Gonna let that model build, and then I'll come back and we'll do another utterance profiler test. So that's actually time for us. I'm going to stick around, answer all the questions that are open in chat. Happy to stick around for a little bit more, but wanted to make sure that I covered all the different tools and features that have been released over the last few weeks in full during our hour. So I successfully did that. Yay me, pat on the back. But like I said, I'm happy to answer any other questions that you might have about these specific features or any other features. Happy to show that and re-demo anything that you want, try out anything. I don't think quick cell phone break just to make sure that I'm not missing a meeting. Yep, no meetings that I would be missing, so I'll stick around for another 20 or so minutes. I'm going to go back to Utterance Profiler and just test this really quickly. I want to go kayaking in Portland. Let's just do it that and see what happens. Damn it. I want to go to Portland and kayak. So I want to try both and see, yeah. So see oh no, I made a mess now because I was in the middle of one and I did it again. Let's do this. I want to go to Portland and kayak. So it filled kayak, but it didn't do, Portland. Typing is not my strong suit. Portland and kayak. There you go. Nope. So, and this is where I would go back to plan my trip, and I would say, okay, this one's the one that failed. I want to go to city and activity. So there's some gaps here in the training data, and this is what Utterance Profiler is for. So I'm improving the model as I go. Okay, so question time. Yeah, so Block Lab, the apps don't look exactly like the website anymore, but if you dig around in there, you can get to that same view that has all the screens. Is there any plan to release the Alexa SDK in .NET C#? Again, I don't know the roadmaps for the different teams specifically, so I can't really speak to if that's going to happen. If you have any feature requests, the ideal place for them is alexa.uservoice.com. So if you have any feature requests, I just put the link on in chat, and you can log your request there. The product teams actually go there. They prioritize features that are coming from customers. They put them into their sprints, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a good place for you to request that. Amola Syntech. I'm sorry about how I read your handle. I'm sure there's words in there. At George17 says, what are the best practices when developing for Alexa and Teams? Currently have different skills for different dev, and then we have a master skill that we push to. Will versioning in Alexa be available like there is in Lex versioning for skills, intents, and slots? Not that I've heard of, but again, that could be something that's in the works from the team. A way that I've seen multiple like enterprise developers collaborate with broad teams on skills is using Git, right, or any kind of remote repository. Since the models are actually just a JSON file, you can just pull everything down, work on it, and then push to Git, and then everything is kind of kept in sync, and you can see your diffs and all that there. So that kind of might not be the ideal solution for you, George, but it does bridge the gap. Jeff PSF, if a skill has not just yet been enabled, can you do a one-shot invocation and enable it at the same time? For example, tell my skill that my code is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What will Alexa do in response? Is there a way to test this? Yeah, there's a way to test it. You can just grab a device and try it. A device that's not linked to your own account. You can make a burner account as a user and try that. It's probably going to be hard for the device to actually respond to that properly or the way you expect it, unless your invocation name is very unique and easy to say. So you're going to be highly dependent on that invocation name. In many cases, if you nail the invocation name and you say, Alexa, ask blah, blah, blah for blah, 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 even if though it's not enabled, it'll try to enable it for you and then do it. But again, since it's not a part of your skills, that is going to be very dependent on the whole utterance not being easily confused with something else, like a song or something else where it's like, okay, you don't have this skill, so I'm not weighing it that highly. But there's a song that has the same name, so statistically you're more likely to be requesting that song. But it should work on paper. Helps that you don't need to write everything more than once. I am not sure what that means, but if you have more info for me, I'm happy to help. Tony De. Are there plans for being able to transfer ownership of a skill in the developer console? Again, I'm not privy to roadmap, so I really couldn't tell you what the plans are for that. If you're doing contract work or you're developing skills for third parties, I would recommend that you sign some sort of agreement with them and you develop it in your customer's account, or you actually publish to live and enable in your customer's account. If you're trying to get a skill transferred, you can do it today. You have to cut a support ticket, but that could take a while. It's not a manual or like an easy self-service process, but you can definitely request it. Alexa, I'm gonna post a link to how to cut a ticket to the team, just in case that you might need it. Where did chat go? Come on, chat. Here we go. Can you use JSON with C# so it's handled that way too? Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. Yes, you are absolutely right, Janisku7. You can develop your skills any way you want with any code, host them in any server that you want. It's not limited to AWS. It's not limited to the languages that Lambda supports. You can basically do it however you want because it's just JSON coming in and going out. Do you have any good references for using location services? I tried using users' postal code and had issues getting the data after being granted permissions. I wrote a gist for getting, or had a gist in my GitHub page for getting something, but I can't remember what it was. But if you tell me what issues you were running into Fury LN, I'm happy to help you debug it. It should just work. Let me see if I can find my gist real quick. I think it was for time zone though. Yeah, I had a time zone interceptor. If you want to take a look at that, I can share a link as well. That's just mostly hacky code that I wrote, and then other people kind of piled onto it. Is there a order of questions in auto-delegate random? It's not. It's going to go in the order of the slots being present in the utterance for the intent. So it's going to try and fill them in the order that it assumes the intent is in. So we got, yeah, thank you, Chris. Happy that was helpful, and I'm happy that I got it done in the allotted time for once. Okay, Canyon, I assume you had to leave, but thanks for joining us today. Is there any way to add slot values and rebuild models through code? Not through code specifically, but you can use the CLI. So this is just a terminal window. I can so I'm using the ASK CLI that I have installed on my computer to clone a skill, and I made a folder called delete, and I just cloned it there, and then I could go in here. And what was exactly the use case? Add slot values. So I'm gonna go to my models folder. And then here I have just a little editor, like my text editor. And I'm gonna find my here. Hopefully this works. Hopefully that copies, because if it doesn't, I'm going to have a real problem. Yeah, there we go. Close enough. Name, value, and then here I could add a new value. And let's say kayaks was my new value. Then I can exit out of here. Yes. True. So now I made that change, and then I can go back to the folder that has the skill.json and just go ask ASK deploy, and then just do that. And that's going to push those changes up to the code. Get lambda errand, failure for custom default, could not find hooks folder. So I've got something set up improperly, but I can just target the model. I think it's -m. Nope. Minus model. Damn it. Ask deploy. Oh, it's target. Target model. Well, I don't know how I broke this. Target help. There's something really broken here. I don't know what I'm doing. But that's how you would do it if you hadn't messed up everything, I guess. Let me try reopening. You can also do it from Visual Studio Code. Let me see if that works for me right now. cd dev, cd delete, cd January, is deploy. I think I messed up my AWS. Yeah. I messed up my credentials, so sorry. I don't know how I did that. I must have done it while I was on stream. Let me answer other questions. But yeah, you can do it that way. It's not from code, but from the CLI. You could do it from SMAPI. You could build like a custom tool to do it that way with what I showed at the top with Postman. Is Utterance Profiler available only in Alexa hosting? Nope. Utterance Profiler is available for all skills, regardless of how they're hosted. I think it's limited to a few languages, like specific English models right now, but it doesn't. It's not limited by where the skill is hosted. Is there a difference between using auto-delegate interface versus returning add delegate directive, update intent, in Lambda? Not necessarily. There's all that's happening is that you don't have to add that code. It's just delegating it itself. So it's assuming that it's always happening. If you were if you're writing your own custom code, it would probably be better for you to be doing some logic or whatever. Is there a difference between using auto-delegate? Nope, already did that. I had posted a link to a helpful tool, but the link was deleted. Oh yeah, so Jovo Tech Jovo is a tool that's built on SMAPI, and they have a Chrome extension that you were trying to share. Chrome extension. Yeah, just Twitch chat removes all links because we have seen people use them maliciously, which, you know, not great. But you can find it here if you want to take a look at it. Jan and those guys from Jovo are great. We love them, so you can take a look at that. Do you know an example of APL touch support? There's a few APL samples that Cammy's been working on our GitHub repo, and I think a couple of those have touch support. If you clone a skill, alt skill, a live skill show up twice, probably live in the development. How are you supposed to decide which one is which just from the response you get from ASK clone? So you like the models would be different, and you can't actually push to the live skill block lab. You'll be blocked from doing that. You can only push to your development one. Yeah, thanks, Aris Chaffrath. It was target, but I don't know what I'm doing. I guess is it double dash target? But it should still. That error, though, that not authorized to perform, yeah. Something else is broken. I'm not sure what it is. Because the error is actually lambda get function on a specific resource. Oh, I know why. What a silly goose. I'm trying to push to the hosted skills. So I can't push to hosted skills from the CLI because I don't have the tokens for that AWS account. So that's another limitation of hosted skills. Yeah, that's it. So if I actually wanted to do this, let me show you from the terminal that is less small. Slightly less small for now, but we can fix that quickly. So whoa, having all sorts of problems typing right now. ASK clone, and then instead of doing that, I can just grab a different one, and then I could make an edit to that model, and then push that up. CD, and then here, I could change, I don't know. I don't think this one has got slots, but I can do facts about Mexico. And I'm basically changing the invocation name for a skill that's in development. And then save that. Yes, save. And then, whoop, one too far. and then ask deploy. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and that'll push the model and do all that magic. All right, do you know? Oh yeah, Space Explorer is a great example too. That one's awesome. Oh, I wasn't showing my my screen while I was doing all of that. But basically, I did the same thing, but for a skill that's not hosted skills, that's actually hosted on my own AWS account. Now it's actually deploying and making those changes there. Thanks. How would you recommend setting up Lambda aliasing so you can have a skill set up for beta testing and then a skill still make changes to your Lambda and model? If you can just make new versions and add the alias, and then if you do the ARN and colon for that alias, it just points to that. So you can have your endpoints pointing to two different things. If you're doing it from the developer portal, you could have skills. And you'll see that this one was the one I pushed from the CLI, and the invocation name is now facts about Mexico. It used to be Mexico facts because I pushed it from the CLI, so I can make those changes. It's not programmatically per se by nature, but you could do it there. And then the other question was, oh, aliasing. So if I go to silly number facts, I went to the live one. That's not the one I want. I want the one that's in development or in review. Here in my endpoint, I could, to this ARN, at the end of that ARN, I could append the alias for my Lambda function, and it would just point to that. If you don't have anything, it's just pointing to latest. So you can do it that way. And I can show you how that works. Please don't email me if you've seen my email today. I never read my personal email, and people email me there, and then they get angry because I don't respond to my email. If you want to talk to me, hit me up on Twitter. I respond to my DMs better than I do to email, even work email. But don't tell my boss. So Lambda, I was messing around with silly number facts yesterday, so yeah, 21 hours ago. That makes a little bit of sense. Here, you'll notice that actions, you can publish a new version, and if there's enough changes, it'll let you do that. But you can also create aliases, and you can create an alias for a specific version. I've got two versions, and one's the one that's actually the dev version, and the other one that's the prod version. And right now, latest is pointing to dev. But the way you can do it is, there's a way to switch. Well, I have a dev. I know my alias is dev. I'm blanking out on how to see all my aliases right now. But if I just do dev, it would still work and would just point to, no, it's in certification, so I can't even change it. But if it wasn't in certification, I could change my endpoint to just :dev, because that's the alias I made for one of the versions. Do you know any sample that handles pagination for long responses? Alexa says the first 3 items and prompts the user if you'd like to continue. I don't think we have a sample for that, but it should be fairly straightforward. It's a brand new intent, right? Hey, here's the top 3 hotels for your destination. Would you want to hear more? And then if you get a yes intent that follows that question, you can just say, here's another 3. So it's not, the logic behind that's fairly straightforward. All you need to do is just keep track of what question you're asking. I can send you a link to the Space Explorer blog post. Give me 1 second. And I'm basically out of time for real this time. Alexa developer blogs. We have a whole series that actually, it wasn't one of the evangelists, but it was another one of the Alexa team members wrote on the that's called Space Explorer skill, and it's fantastic. So let me get you that as a parting gift. That's not it. 1 second. Almost there. Yep. So this is just one of the posts in the series that John put together, but it's really, really good. I really recommend you take a look at it. All right, and it shows you how to do Lambda, a bunch of APL things. I had to step away. Did you say if it was possible to convert a self-hosted skill? Yeah, you can. It's only a one-way street, Adam. You can make a hosted skill a non-hosted skill, but you can't go back. So I have, let's say, this skill that I built with that has its own endpoint. There's no way for me to change it to a hosted skill. So this one's already hosted in my AWS account. If I click on the code tab, it just doesn't, you can't switch it. But the other way around, so the skill that we just made, the January releases demo, if I go to endpoints, and I actually provide an ARN here, a different ARN, I can switch it over to be hosted on my own AWS account. I can see there are multiple endpoints we can add. Is there a way I can do that via the API? You can add multiple endpoints here in this screen that I'm showing right now. I'm actually showing it. You can do that from the CLI. You can do that from SMAPI. But those I would recommend you switch your endpoints around as little as you can. But you can definitely change those via the API. APL highlighting. I don't know what video that is. Let me try and grab it. Loading. Here's a video by Adam that I had already seen. But now we're going to share with the world. Thank you, Adam. There you go. That's a great video that Adam put together. I didn't realize it was you, Adam. But yeah, thank you so much for making that, and it's really helpful. Jeff, I sent you a DM as you requested on this. Did you find anything? Is there a good code sample you can point me for pulling an image from an S3 bucket? I'm planning to send it as a text message using SNS, which I've working for text. That's slightly out of my wheelhouse. I did do some tests for that. But I can ask the AWS crew again for information. I can show you the test I did, which is not exactly what you were doing, but all I was doing was playing around with, this is not what I want. I want my AWS account. I was playing around with loading images pulled from S3 using the SDK. But I'm not sure how you're gonna, I don't know enough about text messages to know what the encoding should be for that. I don't think there's going to be a sample that does exactly what you want, Jeff. But basically, what I got working here, I'm just pulling XCFI information from the image. You can ignore that, that's a simple image. But what this is a Lambda function that gets triggered when an image is written to an S3 bucket. And when it reads it, it uses the bucket and the event name, and then decodes that URI, and uses this call from the AWS SDK, S3 get object params, blah blah. This returns a serialized version of the image. And then I use some encoding to actually turn it back into a byte array, and then I can actually access the EXIF data. 99% of this code is already built in, available to you using Lambda. So if you go to Lambda and you go to create a new Lambda function, and I made this one in North California specifically because it's not an Alexa region, so I wouldn't get it lost in the shuffle. But if you go to functions and I create a function, if you click AWS Serverless Application Repository, I was just digging around the S3 samples. Publish SNS for S3 trigger Python, image monitoring, detection using recognition. Now I can't find the one I used. Audio to MP3. Well, I got a run, but there's one here that was really easy to find last time. Here, this one. AWS S3 get object. And if you deploy that, it already is pulling the S3 object based on an event, on an S3 event triggering a Lambda function. And then you have the object there. You can use the SDK to push it to SNS. But I don't know how you're going to encode that image, that JPEG or whatever, because I don't know enough about texts and MIME objects and all that. So that part I really don't know, but this should at least get you rolling. I'll send you a link to it as well over Twitter DM. Thank you for reminding me, Jeff. Okay, well, thank you so much. Thanks for chatting with us today. It's been an absolute pleasure. Have a great day, and hopefully it's not as cold where you are as it is here. Bye.